This is John Cullen with GrowingYourGreens.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you. It's my last day here in Salt Lake City, Utah area, and where I'm at today is actually Copperton, Utah, which is right outside Salt Lake. You can see the beautiful mountains behind me, and they're surrounded on all sides of me. Definitely really cool. The weather is getting colder here, and most people's summer crops have gone the way of the west. And what I'm going to show you guys today is actually some summer crops, tomatoes and basil and other things, growing inside this greenhouse sustainably, and it's going to be growing well into the winter here in Utah. And how I actually came to be here today, let me go ahead and tell you the story real quick. I was actually at the farmer's market this morning and checking out the farmer's market, walking up and down and checking out all the different sellers and vendors and all this kind of stuff. And a guy behind one of the tables is like, "Hey, do you make like YouTube videos?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "I watch you all the time." Anyways, we get to talk and find out that he works for and maybe a part owner in the company that's housed in the greenhouse behind me, and it's called Dachnick Domes and Aquaponics. And so what they're doing inside is actually they got a commercial aquaponics system going on. I don't know if you guys could see maybe some purplish light coming from the bottom there, and they got the fish tanks in there. But basically, yeah, he's one of my viewers, been watching me for a long time, and we got to chat, and I'm like, "Hey man, I don't got nothing to do this afternoon, let me come over and check out what you got." So I came here, checked it out, and now I'm going to share with you guys, I really like aquaponics on some levels, and I believe, it's definitely better than most commercial farming, where they're, laying down chemicals and synthetic fertilizers and all this kind of stuff in the land, messing up the land. Whereas the aquaponics that we'll show you guys in a minute, it's a much more sustainable way to grow things. It uses 90% less water, than, just growing in the dirt, because all the water is recycled. So it's definitely really cool. Anyways, let me go ahead and take you guys inside and share with you guys what I already got to look at. It's definitely really cool. One of the coolest aquaponic systems that I've seen to date. So now I'm inside the greenhouse with Dachnick Domes and Aquaponics. Check it out, it's all behind me here. This is a commercial style system, and they hope to get in and put these in for farms and for, schools and big projects, so that they can make a difference and teach people more about sustainability. And you might be wondering, John, why does it say Dachnick Domes and Aquaponics? Well, the Dachnick is a Russian word, and it basically means like your home garden or a garden attached to your house. And so basically the thought on this is that they want everybody to grow their own home garden, or even more like decentralized farming and gardening, instead of like shipping lettuce from California to New York or California to who knows where else in the world they ship it, right? Canada, you could set up one of these guys in a greenhouse and grow some of the best lettuce in the most sustainable way. Because not only is this just using aquaponics, it's also doing it very intelligently to really maximize the amount of plants that can be grown. Okay, I visited other aquaponics setups before, and most of them have, like a raft bed system, kind of like on the bottom, which is the last aquaponics place I visited in Houston. Most of their stuff was grown in the raft system, all their stuff for commercial production, right? They did have also the gravel beds, where they kind of didn't really grow stuff for production, but just kind of like to help filter things out. But here they're taking it to the next level up, right? And now they're integrating vertical growing into the aquaponics, and they're using aeroponics, right? So that's growing with air. Well, they're also growing with the aquaponics nutrient solution that's being pumped up from the bed up to the top and dribbled down. And as you guys can see, the Swiss chard that I'll give you guys a close-up on in a minute is growing amazing. Plus, even more sustainable than just the plastic PVC tubes that I see all the time. These tubes, I don't know if you guys can see them, you'll get a close-up in a minute. They're bamboo, man. They're like the coolest grow tubes I've ever seen in my life. Anyways, let's go ahead and bring the camera down, give you guys more of the close-ups on actually what's going on here. I mean, above, I want to show you guys this real quick from the far shot. because up above me, this is their tomato plants. These tomato plants, I mean, they could be managed better. I'm not going to lie about that. But these guys are trellised or grown up on string, and I don't know how much of the shot the camera gets, but these guys extend like 10 feet up into the air. The problem with this at this point is that it's hard to harvest them. So I'll be getting up on a ladder and actually harvesting and eating some of their tomatoes. And so yeah, up on this side they got tomatoes growing super tall, and on that side growing super tall. And they're also growing the tomatoes in a different way. They got the tomatoes in fabric pots inside the gravel bed, inside a soil-based medium with compost and coconut coir and all that kind of good stuff in there. And only the bottom is sitting in the gravel bed to get some of the nutrients. And as you guys can see, it's worked amazingly, and it's going to allow them to have tomatoes well into the winter, where most gardeners and farmers in this area are pretty much done with their tomatoes by about now. So now I want to share with you guys more on how the aquaponics system works here. And what you guys are seeing is basically like, this is like the commercial or warehouse kind of like shelving that's in like your big Costco and whatnot. And here they have it set up to house the flood trays, or the trays that hold the grow medium. In this case, it's the gravel or volcanic rocks, and down below it's basically the float beds. In addition, above you guys can see these really cool, snazzy 100% bamboo aeroponic towers that have Swiss chard growing on both sides. It's really working amazing. Now, before I get into the whole flow of things here, literally it's the flow, I want to share with you guys more about the Dachnick Domes and Aquaponics and how the company was started. I got to share some time with the owner here and the founder. It was really cool to chat. Where, like, I like to say, two great minds think alike. You know, we want to change the world and whatnot. But what he started with was actually, he started with a dome in his backyard, literally, you know, and built a custom system, a custom aquaponic system, so that he could be more sustainable. And he thought that, you know, it'd be a much better way is that if everybody grew their food in a more sustainable way through the aquaponics and had a more decentralized kind of farming, instead of, you know, relying on big farmers to grow your food and have it shipped far distances, you know, have people grow your food, or have yourself grow your own food, you know, right outside your door. That's why it's Dachnick. It's like your own home garden. And so he started that, and he wants to produce kits with a dome, you know, that you could put in your backyard no matter where you live, that has a built-in heating and cooling and solar panels to drive it all, in an aquaponics system that you could just take out of a box and just set up, and you could have an instant aquaponics system in your backyard to grow your own food. You know, unfortunately that's not quite here yet. That's the second stage. He found out that very quickly that he ran out of money, so he needs to fund, you know, the stage 2, and the way he's doing that is with the stage 1 right here. And so he's designed a commercial system to go into farms, into, you know, universities, into colleges, schools, nonprofits, wherever, for places that want to learn more about aquaponics, but also produce their own food and be more sustainable, whether that's the Silicon Valley company or whatever. And that's what they've really been focused on now for the last 9 months or so. Since this system behind me went in, they've gone through a lot of trials and tribulations, and they really have now gotten this system dialed in. They're going to hopefully be installing their first commercial system real soon. So how this works overall is at the end of this setup here, they have a fish tank, and they have 4 of these, and each one is completely independent. So each setup has its own tank of fish and gets its own nutrients. They're not linked together, so this is a good thing, because if one of the systems go bad, it's not going to affect the other ones, and they're still going to have some production. So I like that they've actually kind of isolated it. And basically they feed the fish food, which is the primary input, and actually it's a locally sourced fish food, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then they feed the fish food, then the fish, they poop and they pee in the water they're living in, and nobody wants to live in their own poop and pee water. So then through gravity, because the fish tank is higher, the gravity flows the water into these top gravel beds, where there's thousands of worms living in these gravel beds. And the interesting thing about that is that there's no intermediary filtration like some aquaponics setups I've visited. They just pump the raw water in to the gravel beds. The earthworms then take all the nutrients and all the stuff in there, and then they basically eat it, for lack of a better word. They eat it, and then they basically poop out the earthworm castings, which is actually nutrition for the plants, plus all the bacteria and other microbes in the gravel beds that have a nice home to live. They're digesting those fish wastes and turning it into nutrients for the plants. Plus, of course, the gravel provides a lot of surface area for these bacteria and microbes and things to live. And then the water is then siphoned out when it gets too high, and then it goes in to the bed down below, once again through gravity. And these are the raft beds that they're growing different kinds of crops in. I really like that they have, different mediums to grow the crops in. Like this is the gravel bed, that's the raft bed, and this is the aeroponic bed, or the aeroponic tower. And with these three different growing, systems, you're allowed to grow wider varieties of food. So for example, tomatoes, they're not really going to do good in a raft system like down below, but the lettuce will do amazing, as will many other herbs. But now when you have a gravel bed, you could now grow even more different kinds of crops. And then with the aeroponics, you could even expand that further, because think about it, in the bottom bed there's water 100% of the time on the root zone. Not all plants like that. One of the plants that you should be growing in the bottom float raft system is the watercress. It loves to have its roots wet in water, plus watercress is one of the most nutrient-dense foods in the entire planet that more people need to be eating, in my opinion. Next, in this bed, it's not always wet like the one below it, right? It's wet and dry on a regular cycle. The water will cycle up, it'll fill up, and then it'll drain out. So the roots aren't under constant moisture. So this gives you a different, set of plants you could grow in this bed. Some of the things that were grown in here recently were the microgreens that really did well. They had just pulled them all out because they're kind of resetting at this point when I'm visiting. They didn't expect me to come by today. And then up in the aeroponic tower, that gets the least amount of water, right? They just dribble the water down from the top that gets pumped out of this guy, and then gets actually put back into here. And then the roots are bathed in the nutrient-rich water, but not all the time. So it's mostly grown in air. So that's really cool, because I've never seen an aquaponic system that grows in this fashion that allows you to grow the widest variety of crops. Plus, I really like the setup here because, they're growing vertically. So all this stuff is vertically. So you got to have a tall, greenhouse like we are in today. These smaller crops just have a few feet to grow. They also got the LED lights on here that we'll show you guys in a minute, and they're energy saving lights. And then also they have a lot of ambient light here in the greenhouse for the top levels, and on some of the deep things inside they even got lighting on the top that comes on automatically if they need it. And that's basically how this system works in a nutshell. What I want to do next for you guys is actually take you guys down and show you guys the fish, which are the main drivers of this system, as well as the food they're feeding the fish, which is really important in my opinion. So now I want to show you guys actually the fish tanks that they're using, which are just big stock tanks, like 1,250 gallons of water in these tanks. They actually have them in special framing, so they have them up off the ground so that they could actually use gravity to their advantage and use less pumps. It's not that they don't use any pumps here. They use a pump once to get the water from the bottom flood tray back into the tank, and then they use a few pumps to pump the water up in to the aeroponic towers. But anyways, so we're going to go ahead and go up this little ladder setup here and show you guys some of the fish. So now let's get into more about how this specific aquaponic system functions here. The main driving force behind an aquaponic system and how it all works is the fish. The fish is what makes it possible, right? I mean, in an aquaponic system, the primary nutrients for the plants is the fish waste, right? and the primary source of the fish waste is the fish once you feed them the fish food here. Oh, look at fishies, I got some fish food for you. And so this is some flaked food, so I'm glad to see that they actually feed flaked food besides pelletized food. And this is made out of some locally sourced shrimp from the Great Salt Lake, which is kind of cool. It's even more sustainable than, you know, getting shipped in food. And so simply all they do is they feed the fish. Maybe we'll try to feed the fish in the middle so they're not, whoa, jumping out and going crazy. Oh my gosh, I'm getting all wet. You know, they feed the fish eat the food, and then basically they make the poop and the pee that then goes through their system to feed their plants, right? And that's just how simply it works. And so I want to go through next and show you guys actually what happens to the poop and pee water after the fish consume the food and generate that. Then it goes into the system to get cleaned out. So once you feed the fish make their poop and pee, then the water gets distributed through this intricate system of piping and valves. I really like that they have all different kinds of valves in line here to turn off different components of the system, to turn off different grow beds if they need to do that, so they could, you know, be fully flexible. And then basically the water goes into these this tubing here. Each tubing that you're seeing down below feeds one of these large beds, which then gets filled up with water, and they're basically on a siphon valve that when it gets too full, it'll empty out. And so that always keeps the water, you know, not always constant. So, you know, it gives aeration to the creatures in there, including the bacteria and the earthworms, as well as the plant roots, so that the plant roots and the plants aren't always just living in water like the bed below that we're going to take a look at next. Next, I want to show you guys what happens to the water after it goes through that gravel bed and it gets filtered by that bacteria and the microbes and the earthworms in there. It gets kind of cleaned a little bit, and then it comes down through basically a pipe, and then it goes in to this system, which is the float and raft system, where, you know, all the plants are sitting on this raft that's basically floating in there. And I kind of like what they've done here. They've taken some food grade, kind of like basically bed liner material that's like white, and spray painted the styrofoam or whatever here, which is really cool. So it kind of like keeps a lot neater and cleaner from flaking and all this kind of stuff. And what they're growing in here is some oak leaf lettuce. And check out the root on this oak leaf lettuce right here. It's definitely looking really good. You know, lettuce is one of the things that, you know, doesn't mind having its roots wet. And that's what they're growing down here, the lettuce, and also some kind of like kales and collard greens, as well as select herbs, you know. And so the water dribbles down into this, and they got a little cool float valve right here that keeps the water at the appropriate level. And then finally the water then gets actually pumped up after it's been cleaned through the different levels back into the fish tank. But before it gets pumped back into the fish tank, they're doing something unique and different that I haven't seen before. So I'm going to show you guys that next. So after the water goes through the raft system down below and it's getting too full, it is then pumped up back into the tank. But before it goes into the tank, they're doing a few methods of water treatment to ensure the fish have a nice place to live. And this is something I actually haven't seen on too many other aquaponics setups, which is kind of cool. First, they're running it through a UV clarifier. So the UV clarifier may kill all the different bacteria and some of the different things in the water, because, you know, they don't want to do this before when they're pumping the water out into the grow beds, because it's some of these important bacteria, you know, make aquaponics work basically. And so anyways, before the water is going back in, they want to make sure the water is clean again to go through the cycle again. So they put it through the UV clarifier, and then they have another filter, or actually not necessarily a filter, but another device they run the water through, which is up here. This is called the Rainmaker H2O. And that's this little device right here. And what that does, that basically structures the water. It might be using magnets, might be using something else. So basically it structures the water. So this is really cool. So like in some of the research I've seen with magnetics and structuring water, they say your increases, you know, your yield increases can actually go up. Plus they're also providing a healthier water for the fish, and a healthier water that may work better with the plants and absorb more oxygen and all these kind of things, right? So it's definitely really cool. They're on the cutting edge, and they're using some of these devices to make the water better for the fish as well as the plants. Now, that's the simple way the water goes through the system. The other way is actually up into the towers, where they actually pump the water out of the gravel bed up through the towers to let it dribble down and feed the plants in the tower. So let's go ahead and give you guys a close-up of some of these cool bamboo aeroponic growing towers. So the other way the water gets used before it actually goes back down and goes back and feeds the fish is actually through these bamboo growing towers. They're made by Dachnick. I haven't really seen these before, and maybe the reason why is because they are expensive. But once again, you know, using more plastics and PVC, not sustainable. So they want to try to be as sustainable as they possibly can. So by using bamboo towers that are actually handmade, they could do that. Plus, to me, like, the bamboo looks really cool. I mean, bamboo is an organic material, so I have seen some kind of like dark, maybe mold staining and things, which may be good or may not be good for the system. I mean, it looks like their fish and everything are still really healthy, so that's really good. And maybe that's because of the UV clarifier and the way they're structuring the water, despite the, you know, the mold or whatever else is growing on the bamboo. And as you guys can see, the plants here, the Swiss chard is just loving it. It's some nice and healthy Swiss chard. I've had some of the Swiss chard stalks here. It's really nice and flavorful, really good taste on it. And yeah, basically they're just using the same net pots to grow in as they're using in the net pots in the flood table that's down below. So now I want to talk more about the aeroponic growing of the Swiss chard in these bamboo towers. You know, I think this is really the next stage for aquaponics growers, is to start using and incorporating towers like this. And I'm glad that they're doing it here, and they're doing it here successfully, because most aquaponics grows that I've been to, they're using a lot of horizontal space, and they're wasting a lot of their vertical space. You know, whether they're growing the lettuce and, you know, mass amounts of lettuce, or whether they just have, you know, standard you know, rocked grow beds, they could be using the space above the grow beds like this, you know, wisely to grow and produce more and different kinds of foods to supplement their farm's income. Or if you're a home gardener, or, you know, a person that's just growing for yourself, you could grow a lot more food by using the vertical space. So I really love that they've done a really excellent job of using the vertical space and are able to even produce more food through these bamboo towers. So here's another shot of using space really effectively at Dachnick Domes and Aquaponics. What you guys are looking and seeing behind me are the bamboo towers, which kind of look like tree trunks to me, and then you have the greens growing out of the tree trunks, which are really the bamboo towers. Looks really cool. Here they have some really, you know, fragrant basil that I could smell just right when I walked over here, as well as behind, you know, they got some oregano down there further. And then here at the base, they're growing other crops. In this case, it's carrots, but they could grow microgreens or many other different crops to kind of fill in. So this is kind of like simulating, you know, maybe some kind of permaculture principles, or stacking layers. So they got things growing vertically up, and then they got things on the bottom, and then even below this gravel bed, like you saw earlier, they got below this, they got a raft bed full of different kinds of mixed greens, including collard greens. So this is one of the most intelligently designed aquaponic systems that I've ever seen. I really like it, especially when you're kind of just looking at this. I really like how the bamboo just really looks natural and organic, unlike most, you know, plastic and synthetic, you know, towers that I have seen in the past. So here's a pretty good shot for you guys from down below, so you can see like the raft bed here that they just newly planted some herbs out. And then, you know, they got the energy efficient LED lighting with the right spectrum of lights for the plants, and it just like these consume low energy. And I definitely believe that if you guys have grow lights in your house, right, you guys should probably use some LED bulbs, especially if you're growing for vegetative uses, right? So like the leafy greens and the herbs, definitely you should use LED bulbs. Now if you need more power to like maybe produce fruits or, you know, other things, you know, then you might need more power. But for the majority of the things that you're gonna grow, especially plant starts and cuttings and all these kind of things, you could do easily with the energy efficient LED lighting. And yeah, so this is a really nice shot, just showing you guys the bottom that they got planted out, and then goes to the top layer above with all those amazing, you know, bamboo towers above there. I think the next thing I'd like to do, because I'm getting kind of hungry, man, is I want to harvest some of the tomatoes that are growing like 10, 15 feet above the floor that I'm standing on right now. So we're gonna go ahead and get out a ladder, and I'm gonna climb up there and harvest some tomatoes, and show you guys the bountiful harvests that you could be producing if you grew in a system like they're doing it here. So next, what I'm gonna get to do is actually dive up and climb up into that tomato canopy you guys are seeing like way up there, man. They're growing at least half a dozen different varieties of tomatoes, from standard, you know, red slicers to like cherry tomatoes to Roma tomatoes to like these really cool heirloom tomatoes. And you know, I haven't seen tomatoes really thrive really well, right, under any kind of aquaponics system before in all my travels, right? But they're doing it a little bit differently here than I have seen done in other places, and that may be one of the reasons for it. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys their special technique they're using to grow these amazing 15 feet tall tomato plants that are still producing despite the winds and the cold fall weather that's now coming in. So the question is, how are they growing these really super tall tomato plants that are still producing some amazing heirloom tomatoes right here? And basically they're just using some inexpensive fabric grow pots, as you guys can see all the way down. And maybe these are like a 12-inch you know, wide grow pots. And they basically put a compost mixture in there with some other amendments. So literally they're growing these plants in a soil-based medium, not a soil-less medium like some places do. So I think that's really important. They've started them out with some really good nutrition in there. And then they put these little pots only like in the gravel beds, maybe just a few inches, so that the bottom, you know, could soak up the liquid nutrients from the fish. And then the roots actually will grow through some of these fabric pots, because these are like the cheap low-end fabric pots that the roots could maybe go through. Plus these fabric pots are providing air pruning for the roots of the tomatoes. And basically they just suck up the nutrients. And the other reason why I believe this is doing really well is because they have lighting on them. They got the LED lighting that comes on automatically when needed. It actually just kicked on as I have been here to provide the plants, you know, the light they need to produce. Plus they're up in the canopy getting the natural sunlight from the greenhouse. Plus they have the proper temperature here in the greenhouse, because they have you know, a cooling wall to keep it cool when it gets too hot. And they got heaters, you know, that they could kick on to keep at the right temperature. So controlling the temperature, very important, as well as, you know, providing the plant the nutrition and getting it the light, and also the right mixture of air to the root zone, which these fabric pots are providing. So I think all these come together to allow them to grow some amazing tomato plants under the aquaponics here. All right, next, I'm climbing up, man. I'm eating some tomatoes. So what I want to do for you guys next is actually climb up in the tomato canopy that you guys can probably see behind me there. So many tomatoes up there. I'm gonna go ahead and harvest one, and I'll taste test one for you guys. All right, now I'm ascending up into the canopy here, like easily 6 feet off the ground. Now I'm able to reach up in here and grab some tomatoes. So I'm looking for like some really ripe ones, right? I want to harvest ones where there's like only red ones hanging with no green. Also, when I pick them, I want to make sure they kind of come off really easily in my hands. Here's one nice tomato, cherry tomato. Eat it. Definitely it's got some good flavor, especially for this time of year here in Utah. I think what I want to do next for you guys is actually pick up the camera, and I want to show you guys what I'm seeing when I'm up here, because it's just totally insane. I mean, this plant is just loaded with tomatoes. So now you're going to go ahead and climb the ladder with me here. Okay, got the ascent here. Look at all these tomatoes up in here, man. They're just totally packed. I mean, here's the thing. This tomato plant, I mean, look, I'm gonna just move some of these leaves back. I don't know if you guys could see that, but man, this thing is just loaded with like literally hundreds of cherry tomatoes that they need to be, frankly, doing a better job picking because there's so many up here. It's like totally insane. So this tomato plant must be really happy to be producing all this fruit. It's totally amazing. I think I'm gonna eat some of these tomatoes and take a break for dinner, and then I'm gonna come back at you in a little bit. So my time here at Dachnick Domes and Aquaponics is pretty much done. I got to pretty much show you guys the whole process, taste a whole bunch of their cherry tomatoes, so my stomach's full now. Definitely had a good day. But what I wanna share with you guys next is actually, you guys saw the whole process on what happens, and literally the only input that they're using is the fish food that I shared with you guys. That's sourced locally from a local company here. But they do add a few other things to make all this happen. So number one, like many other aquaponics places I visited, they add some iron. So this is the aqua iron. They add to their system to make sure that the plants have the proper amounts of iron. Another thing that they use, actually there's a bunch of empty bottles, I didn't see any full ones, but it's this stuff. I never heard of this stuff, I'll have to look it up actually. This is called Liquid Dirt, liqui-dirt.com, and this is probably good for you know, maybe aquaponic and hydroponic growers. It adds further nutrition, you know, into your system. And the other recommendation that I talked to the owner and the founder about a little bit earlier is adding some rock dust. You know, azomite is made or you know, mined here locally, here near Salt Lake City, and just by adding some azomite into the, you know, growing beds, that's going to greatly improve the nutrition of not only the crops, not only the fish, but also the people that's eating the food. Also, it'll help to make the plants and fish more bug, pest, and disease resistant. So yeah, definitely a really cool thing. I encourage all you guys, whether you guys have a home garden, aquaponic system, or whatever, to get on the rock dust. Really good stuff. If you don't know about it, please be sure to check my past episodes. I have plenty of videos on the rock dust and why adding the trace minerals that aren't normally added to gardening and why it's super important. The final thing I'd like to say is if you guys are looking for a commercial aquaponic system, that's what Dachnick Domes and Aquaponics, you know, specializes in. So you definitely want to contact them. You can come for a tour and, you know, learn how their systems work. And, you know, I've definitely seen firsthand that their systems are working really well. And I'm sure they're going to even dial them in to be even better. And I'm definitely waiting for the day that they're going to have their home dome systems, you know, that you could have an aquaponic system in a kit, set up a growing dome, and grow year-round off the grid, powered by the sun. Definitely gonna be really cool. So if you guys wanna learn more about the Dachnick Domes and Aquaponics, come for a tour, learn more about their stuff, you wanna visit their website it's dachnickdomes.com. And if you guys enjoyed this video, me coming to the Dachnick Domes and Aquaponics, be sure to give me a thumbs up to let me know. Next time I come back to Salt Lake City, I'll be sure to drop by, make another episode, show you guys what they're doing. Hopefully they won't be in between seasons like they were this time, and they'll have everything fully planted out, and we'll just have abundant amounts of produce growing healthily here. And yeah, so yeah, thumbs up if you like it, for sure. It encouraged me to do more videos on aquaponics, which one of these days I'm gonna get into. Maybe if that dome kit comes out, I might get one myself. Also be sure to click that subscribe button right down below. You never know where I'll show up or what I'll be sharing with you guys. If you click the subscribe button, you'll be notified of every video that I put out, which comes out every 3 to 4 days. I put out a new video, and they are always containing a wealth of information. Finally, be sure to check my past episodes, right? My past episodes are also a wealth of information. I've visited many different aquaponics places, and you know, I teach you guys how to grow food at your own home, build raised beds, like everything you guys need to know about becoming more sustainable in terms of food-wise is what I share with you guys on my channel. So be sure to check my past episodes if you're not already one of my subscribers and have seen many of my episodes. I'm sure you're definitely going to enjoy them. So with that, my name is John Kohler with growingyourgreens.com. We'll see you next time. And until then, remember, keep on growing. All right, this is John Kohler with growingyourgreens.com. Today I have another exciting episode for you. And where I am today, I'm here in Salt Lake City, Utah. And the reason for this episode today is to show you guys